Hello. Hello, good evening. It is Saturday evening, July 13th. It is freaking hot, so my AC is already on. And Junior has stopped by to say hello. This is my sweet little man. And he's so big. And he wants to play with the mic. Hi, bud. You want to play with this? He's been kind of alone today. People. Yesterday was the wildest court, and I haven't seen a ton of court days in my days, Oh, you gonna stay with me and warm me up? Thank you, buddy. Yesterday was an absolutely unheard of, wild, out of pocket, unbelievable day of court in the great state of New Mexico and the world. So, hi everybody who's here. Good to see you. So I figured let's make this a space where we can yell together about what the heck happened in this trial, especially yesterday. So for the format of tonight, I'm going to start by giving a brief recap of what happened specifically yesterday, because I feel like the people who show up to this live probably already kind of know what the trial is about. But when we get to discussing what I would really want to discuss, which I hoped was going to be discussed in this case, but now that it's over, it won't be, which is the big question of what was Alec Baldwin's responsibility? What is the actor's responsibility in the situation that Alec was in? Did he commit a crime based on what we know, what's publicly available information, and a lot of it comes from the Hannah Gutierrez-Reed trial. So it's not the same kind of speculation as if that trial had not happened and we had absolutely nothing to go off of. We've seen a lot of evidence from that first trial. What was his responsibility? What do we think about this? Because I'm having a hard time with it, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. I'm having a hard time figuring out where I come down on this issue. So I look forward to having that debate. And at that time, when we discuss that, then we'll go a little deeper into the background of the whole entire case. But yeah, people, hold on to your hats. If you've never watched a day of court before in your life and you don't get why people watch court and you're like, oh, it's got to be boring. Watch what happened yesterday. If you only want to watch one day of court in your entire life, watch yesterday, Friday, July 12th in the Alec Baldwin trial. I watched it streamed with Emily D. Baker. If you want commentary, that was a fun experience. If you don't want commentary, you can go straight to Court TV or Law and Crime or some other source where there's no commentary. Basically, what happened yesterday is over the course of the day, slowly and methodically, more and more information was unfolded that essentially several individual members of the prosecution, aka the state, aka the police and the prosecution, law and order, if you will, all in some way, shape, or form, for at least one or two people, possibly accidentally, contributed to the withholding of a significant piece of evidence from the defense team, Alec Baldwin's team. And the thing about that is, you can't do that. And the thing about trials are, no matter who the victim is, no matter how egregious a case is or an action is that is being adjudicated, if the trial is not fair, then as a punishment to the state or the prosecution, the trial can be either declared a mistrial, dismissed without prejudice, meaning it can be brought again, but next time, no mistakes, or the most severe option, the case can get dismissed with prejudice, so it cannot be brought again. And that's what this judge decided to do because of how egregious, she said, not only because of this particular instance, which was particularly egregious, but also She said there was repeated times that and I'm paraphrasing her. I'm not quoting. I'm not going to quote anybody tonight, so just don't. This is all my speculation and opinion. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a police. I'm not a doctor. I'm none of that. I'm just commentating on what I've seen publicly, sharing my opinion, and inviting yours. Say hi in the chat. Let me know what you think about all this. The judge essentially said there's been repeated times that the state has withheld evidence from the defendant. We've seen repeated evidence of this. And for this to happen, especially for it to be discovered so late in the middle of trial, there's no remedy for it other than to dismiss this case, to end this trial and say you cannot do this again, because clearly you don't know how to do it right. Clearly you don't know how to do it fairly. And I can't even begin to describe the theatrics of the way that this all unfolded yesterday. Like, it's a piece of theater. It's an opera. The way that everything went down, you couldn't write this stuff. If somebody wrote a movie or a I don't know, a book or a play or whatever, they would look at this and say, there's no way this would happen. There's no way this would happen exactly the way that it happened, but it did. It was so unbelievable, but it was like watching a train wreck, but a very, very slow one that took like 8 hours and ended in the most public humbling of a prosecutor, who deserved it, in my opinion, that I've seen ever. So thank God this trial was televised, because this is what public access to trials is for. This is what publicizing and televising trials is for. Watch. This has been a bad month. July of 2024 so far has been a very bad month for the ethics of police and lawyers, from the state, essentially, for the prosecution side of American law and legal system, with everything that's been going on. And because, by the way, Karen Reed, that whole situation, the state responded to their request about, hey, a bunch of jury members have come forward and said that they actually did acquit her on 2 charges. And the state's response was, no, we don't want to listen to that. No, I don't think that you, judge, I don't think you have to hear that, because they didn't write it down. They didn't do it right. It doesn't matter that they didn't know they were allowed to come back on only 2 out of the 3 verdicts. The state's like, too bad. No, it's too bad. We want to retry her, so there. So that's been fun to watch the commentary on over the past day as well. It's not a good look for American justice systems today and yesterday. So this is a place for everybody to yell about it, not just me. So yes, that's the story. Alec Baldwin's case was dismissed with prejudice. It cannot be brought again. Alec Baldwin cannot be made a criminal due to his actions or inactions or whatever you want to say, his involvement in the unfortunate passing of Helena Hutchins, a bright and shining new star in the world of cinematography. So really quick, what's interesting is, hold on. So because this evidence was withheld, it's the state's fault. It is entirely the state's fault. They did it to themselves. This is Helena Hutchins. She was a bright and rising star in cinematography at the time that she was unfortunately accidentally unalived on the movie set of Rust. And I didn't include her in the thumbnail of this video for a specific reason. This case was not dismissed because of anything relating to her, what happened to her, the moments that she was involved in. This case was dismissed because of legal fuckery by the state. The state who was so adamant to bring this case, who, in my opinion, saw a whale that they wanted to take down and somehow wrote this narrative of like big bad Alec Baldwin with his big city lawyers and his money is going to come in here to the poor, fragile, rustic state of New Mexico, where we have the full arm of the government, we have the full funding of the state behind us. But yeah, we feel bad for us because big celebrity rich man Alec Baldwin is going to come in here with his fancy lawyers and actually defend himself against our accusations. They're the ones who chose to go after this big high-profile celebrity to humble him, send a message, whatever. And then they're the ones who ended up getting humbled. And this person, Helena Hutchins, is not getting the additional justice that she may or may not deserve, depending on what the jury verdict may have been. You know, we'll never know now. Helena is not going to get that additional result. And it's all the state's fault, not her fault, not anything related to the Rust movie, anything that she was involved with. So I'll show her here in my video. Let's, pay some respects to Helena. But the thumbnail is all about legal fuckery, and it's fascinating. It's sad for those who feel Alec should have been convicted. I will say I do feel like Helena's family has had other forms of justice. Not that she didn't also deserve this, but there's been a lot of civil lawsuits. A lot of money has been paid out. Also with the conviction of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer on that film set. That was a much clearer case of negligence, I feel like, than the Alec case, which is why I wanted to see this Alec case litigated, whatever is the right word. I wanted to see where a jury came down when it came to Alec. But so at least she's not completely justice free, but she's not going to get justice in regards to Alec Baldwin and Alec's actions. What I will show you, there's been a very brief statement from Alec Baldwin on social media today. So I figure I should show you that. If you're here, hi, say hello. I hope you're hydrated. I hope you're doing okay. I hope you're having a nice weekend. How's it going? How are you? How's the weather where you are? Because it's super hot for me still, and I don't know why it won't stop being so warm. All right, TMZ, as of 10:49 a.m. Pacific time this morning, Alec Baldwin breaks silence on Rust dismissal. There's Alec Baldwin, got a nice fresh haircut for court. Alec Baldwin's finally ready to talk about the manslaughter trial, posting a grateful tribute to his friends and fans who stuck by his sides. Sides? His sides? TMZ. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. It's not a big deal. The actor posted a photo to Instagram moments ago, a profile shot from the trial, and given the emotion etched on his face, seems like it was taken just as the realization his legal troubles were at an end dawned on him. I don't have that photo. It's probably this one with the circle around it. That's what I'm guessing. And then this is his statement. There are too many people who have supported me to thank just now. To all of you, you will never know how much I appreciate your kindness toward my family. And that's an appropriate non-statement statement, essentially, just very vaguely being grateful. I don't know if there's... So this article contains links to other significant evidence moments. It looks like significant evidence moments. The whole day yesterday was a significant evidence moment. But it looks like they have significant clips. They got their commentary. Okay. So I will... hey. I'll clip this link to put in the description. Hi, Talking Bones. Because I forgot to do my sources before I started the stream because I kind of rushed. So that's updated now. Cool. The other statement that we've gotten is from the second special prosecutor. So in terms of the structure of how this whole trial was set up, the main prosecutor, Carrie Morrissey, is a special prosecutor who was brought in specifically to work on this issue about the Bang Bang incident. I'm trying to figure out what YouTube will allow me to say. The firing of a firearm incident at the shooting of this Rust movie, and anybody and everybody that needed to be investigated, charged, whatever, related to that incident. Carrie Morrissey was not the first special prosecutor. She took over for somebody else, but then she's been on the case since early in the process, because the first special prosecutor, I believe, was conflicted out for some kind of political reason. So they weren't able to be around for long. So this case has been going on since the incident in October of 2021. So we're at about like 2 years, 9 months of this case. And this was the second trial related to this case. And it ended, it went down in flames. So did Carrie Morrissey, in my opinion. She saw a crashing plane and said, "Ooh, that looks like a flight for me." And she hopped right onto it as it burned into flames. So, alongside Carrie Morrissey, just in the past few months, since April, there was a second special prosecutor named Erlinda Johnson who came onto the team after the trial of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, the armorer, and before, like, to help basically with this trial of Alec Baldwin. And I really liked Erlinda Johnson. Let me just say that. I really liked her delivery. Oh, I know, Talking Bones. We're going to get there. I don't know how much I want to discuss. Well, I'm discussing it now. How about this? I really liked Erlinda Johnson's demeanor. I liked her delivery of her questioning. I liked her attitude overall. She seemed very sincere. She really believed in the cause of prosecuting Alec Baldwin. And let's remember that what Alec Baldwin was charged with was involuntary manslaughter, meaning accidentally doing something that killed somebody. So it was, nobody thought that he purposefully did this, right? But that there was a criminal amount of negligence involved in him doing what he did, essentially aiming the firearm toward a person without personally having checked to see what was inside the firearm and firing it. And it turns out, surprise, it was a live bullet that was inside the firearm. And that bullet, unfortunately, passed through Helena Hutchins, ending her life, and into the director of the movie as well, into his right shoulder, which is here on me, which is where it stayed until EMS removed it. And this was all while they were setting up a specific shot. They were trying to get this close-up of him kind of slowly pulling his gun out of his chest pocket, essentially. And in the preparing of that shot, the gun went off. If you ask anybody who knows anything about that gun, that means that that had to have meant that Alec Baldwin cocked the hammer and pulled the trigger. If you ask Alec Baldwin, he didn't pull the trigger. Now, we'll never really know in a legal sense because we won't be able to adjudicate this, but I think he must, if everybody else says that he had to pull the trigger and cock the hammer, I think that he must have pulled the trigger. That's just me. I don't know much about firearms, but that's my thought on that. Hi. My boy. Hello. Okay. So, Erlinda Johnson was a breath of fresh air when she was on during trial. She was very level-headed, and she clearly has strong ethics and morals, because on Friday, as everything was coming crashing down, and as a whole bunch of evidence was slowly unfolding over the course of the day about what the state knew and withheld in various ways at various times from Alec Baldwin's defense team, throughout the morning, she observed and formed an opinion. During the lunch hour, this is, she went on News Nation last night to clarify this, because after this happened, Carrie Morrissey, the Maine special prosecutor, said that it was for a different reason. So I'm going to tell you what Erlinda Johnson said the real reason was. Erlinda Johnson watched everything unfold, understanding that she only joined this case in April, and all of this evidence withholding shit took place no later than March. So before her time. She watched this day of evidence unfolding. It kept getting worse and worse and worse. Lunch break came. She said, based on the evidence, it seems that the prosecution, the state, has withheld evidence from Alec Baldwin and his defense team. We have no choice but to, mistry, dismiss the case, whatever. We done fucked up, and now we have to pay the price. And this is according to Erlinda Johnson on News Nation last night. Carrie Morrissey still wanted to continue. She still wanted to try to fight to keep the trial going. So Erlinda Johnson quit mid-trial in the middle of the day. She saw this ship sinking and she said, I didn't do this. I am not going down with this ship. Carrie Morrissey later said, under oath, mind you, and we'll get to that in a second. Carrie Morrissey later said that Erlinda Johnson left because she didn't like the fact that this hearing was being held publicly. And Erlinda Johnson went on News Nation last night to say, no, bitch, no. It's because I have ethics and morals that I need to uphold. And all this shit that was going on did not align with my ethics and morals, so I left. I could tell in the moment while Carrie was saying, I think I think Erlinda, Ms. Johnson left because she did not appreciate that that this hearing was being held publicly. I was like, as she was saying it, I was like, you are pulling that out of your ass as we speak. It turns out my intuition was correct. I don't know. Maybe it was that obvious. So I wanted to mention that because that's kind of newer news compared to the whole news of just the happening of yesterday. Also, in case anybody missed it, I'm sure you did because of the wildness that was taking place. I streamed yesterday morning on a completely unrelated topic during the exact time that all this shit was going down. So I understand if you were busy over there watching this Alec Baldwin fiasco unfold. That's fine with me. Oh my God, yes, Rabbit. But I did another stream yesterday morning in my Troubled Teen series. Give it a watch if you want. I've got more coming up as well. Mr. Man, look at him. He's so cute. My camera's too far away to pull it so you can see, but he's just so cute. Okay. If you want to go give that a watch, that would be fun for me and for you, I think. maybe just to refresh and give your mind something else, because we've just seen too much of this police corruption over the past couple weeks. It would maybe just look at some other kind of corruption and see if that cleanses your palate. So yes, Rabbit of Vala, I hope I'm saying that right, Rabbit. The police officer saying that she spoke with Morrissey was jaw-dropping. I was floored. And that was, I think, the big remaining question for the judge. So when it comes to this particular instance of withholding evidence, there was physical evidence that was brought in and given to the police at the sheriff's office that was potentially significant to the defense. And the police kind of had these internal conversations about what to do with it. And basically what happened was Hancock, the lead investigator of this particular case and the multiple trials, she said, let's make a doc report for it, and then later we'll assess it. Because at the time that this evidence was presented to them, it was like it was right at the tail end of the Hannah Gutierrez Reed trial. So, they were busy, and I get it. And so she said that to Morrissey. She was like, we're going to make, we have this evidence. We're going to make a doc report of it. And when I have a chance, I'll go and verify it, log it, whatever she thought she was going to go do. Morrissey said, okay, yeah, sounds good. So in some way, shape, or form, Morrissey knew that the evidence was in police custody and that some kind of report was happening about it. Morrissey said under oath, which we'll get to, Morrissey said under oath that she didn't know that when Hancock suggested doing a doc report, that meant this physical evidence was going to be filed under a different case number than the rest of everything having to do with the Rust case. And therefore, this evidence was withheld because it was in a completely separate area. It was never turned over to the defense because the defense had, access to all of the discovery and all of the evidence under the Rust case, but this was listed under some other case number. Even though, again, it was physical evidence that could have potentially been significant to the defense team. So this is why I said toward the beginning that it may have been accidental from Morrissey's point of view if she didn't know exactly what Hancock was suggesting by saying that she was going to do a doc report. And she may not have known that it was under a different case number. But then there's, talking bones. I call BS on that. I think Morrissey knew for sure. And I understand that point of view. Because Morrissey certainly acts like she knows a lot. She certainly acts like she knows everything. So I would believe if she knew that. But what she risked her career on was saying under oath that she did not. However, we do know that she lied about Erlinda under oath as well. So I wouldn't put it past her to lie about what she knew about the doc report. I don't know. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know for sure, though. Take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt. Yada, yada. So, Erlinda Johnson clarified exactly why she quit this case halfway through the day on Friday. And Baldwin has expressed his gratitude to his friends and family for supporting him through this process. And I think that what I'm the most irritated about, or kind of upset about with this whole thing, is that we are never going to get the jury's opinion, the legal answer to the question of what was Alec Baldwin's responsibility really in this circumstance. Because as a person who, I went to musical theater school, I've done professional acting, I've at least participated a bit in filmmaking. I certainly don't want to be the last stop. I don't know enough about firearms to feel comfortable being the last line of protection And if somebody hands me a firearm and says, this is a cold gun, and this person who hands it to me is the director of safety, and they just cleared the gun with the armorer who is responsible for the guns and the ammunition, I would like to be able to trust that those more expert people know what they're looking at, and that if they look at rounds and say that they're safe, and then hand me a gun and say this is safe, that I can trust that I don't have to recheck the firearm myself. But apparently, typical gun laws don't work that way. And so that's what I wanted to see, like what was going to be the jury's opinion on, are we just going with like kind of standard typical gun safety practices when we're on set, or do we trust the experts to tell the idiot actors, this is a safe gun, you can point it around? Like I'm wondering where the jury was going to fall on that. And I think we can have that discussion here tonight. I think in order to do that, we have to go talk a little bit more about the entire case, including a more thorough breakdown of what happened yesterday. But if you're looking just for the updates and overview version of this video, that was this first half hour. Quick updates, vague overview of the most recent things for those who already are pretty familiar. Hold on. Hi, buddy. Would you like to leave? The AC is loud, isn't it? Okay. He's not at the door. And yes, Rabbit, absolutely. From Hannah's case, Hannah Gutierrez, the armorer. Oh, buddy. What I got, buddy. Buddy. Hi. From Hannah's case, what I got was, even if the armorer said it was safe, you're still not supposed to point it in the direction of people. And I definitely agree with that, because we've had these circumstances that Alec Baldwin even mentioned in an interview related to blanks. Brandon Lee, unfortunately, fell victim to a weird situation with a blank. So yeah, you don't. There were two things basically. So then, okay, this is a great segue into a recap of the case. Once upon a time in October of 2021, there was the filming of this Western movie called Rust. Alec Baldwin was producing it. He was starring in it as Harlan Rust, this guy on the... Thank you, Talking Bones. Harlan Rust. Alec Baldwin is this guy on the run from the law because of, wouldn't you know it, an accidental firearm going off situation, which creates so much irony with this being what happened on the filming of a movie about the same circumstance. Like, it's kind of crazy. You couldn't write this stuff, buddy. You couldn't write this stuff. You done? Okay, great. Okay. So they're filming this movie. It's a low budget movie. People, in retrospect, think that a lot of what was done was hasty, was cheap. They hired less experienced people than they needed on this type of movie, which was firearm heavy, especially historical functioning firearms, rather than like a lot of fake firearms that like look good but don't really do anything. As I mentioned kind of briefly before, they were filming this movie and they had this big church set where they were setting up setting up a scene inside of this church set where blocking is just kind of setting up the movement that the actor is going to do. Not much acting involved as much as like, okay, so then you're going to put your hand here and then you're going to hold on to the thing, and then you're going to take it, like very rudimentary, unemotional type of rehearsal of point by point what the movement is going to be. So they were doing this blocking of the scene. Helena Hutchins, the videographer, cinematographer, was setting up how the camera was going to move and where it was going to be during this close-up. Joel, the assistant director, was kind of over her shoulder, kind of looking into the camera lens, like they were all working on this together in this close-up. And sorry, he's on top of a box that I think he'll be fine. So in the process of filming or of practicing blocking out this scene, there's footage of they spent quite a while, honestly, blocking out this shot. And there's footage of before the lunch break, the first time they were blocking it out, this discussion of Alec, like, okay, so I'm going to pull it out slowly. And then there's direction. And he's like, okay, so I'm going to whip it out like fast. And he does it a couple of times. And each time his finger is on the trigger when he pulls it out. It's supposed to be at most over the trigger guard if he's going to hold it. Really, I don't think that they should have been practicing with any functioning firearm at that time. They could have used a rubber, dummy gun if they needed to have the real firearm, which they didn't. But if they really needed to have the real firearm, they should have had nothing in it. There should have been no ammunition whatsoever. If they needed to have some kind of ammunition, they should have only had dummies. And that was Hannah Gutierrez Reed's job, was to make sure that if there was anything in the gun, it was completely inert dummy rounds that look like something but are unable to fire. That's the point of a dummy round. That's the first point of failure. Hannah Gutierrez Reed was tried and convicted of involuntary manslaughter for the fact that somehow, some way, a live bullet got into that gun, and it was her job to detect it and take it out of there, and really then stop filming of everything and comb the set to make sure that there was no, make sure that she had accounted for every single piece of ammunition and that she could double, triple check and make sure that all of it that she thought was dummies was actually dummies. She did not catch that there was a live round inside that firearm. Sorry. Okay, my cat would like to leave. Give me just a second. Hydrate yourselves. I'll be right back.
Hi, buddy. You want to go out? Okay. Go ahead. Bye-bye.
Okay. So they're practicing this scene with a functioning firearm. They had done some blocking of it before lunch. They went on lunch break that filming day. They came back from lunch break. Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, said that she had dummied up the gun, meaning that it was full of dummy bullets, according to her. We unfortunately found out in the worst possible way that that was not the case. And basically, Hannah Gutierrez Reed handed that firearm full of dummies, according to her, to Dave Halls, the assistant director, who is also the head of safety on that movie. And he took a plea deal on this whole thing. He got 6 months of unsupervised probation, and I think that light of a sentence was in exchange for him testifying at all of the trials, honestly, etc. But yeah, Dave Halls was in charge of safety, so he is partially responsible for this whole thing, and he was extremely experienced. And I think that that's why, maybe, I don't know, I'm speculating. I think that maybe that's why they felt comfortable hiring an inexperienced armorer, Hannah Gutierrez Reed, because she was going to be supervised by Dave Halls, who had so much more experience and had been around a lot of gun-heavy sets. And, I don't know. I'm just speculating. I don't know. So Hannah and Dave Halls do the safety check. They look inside the gun. According to Dave Halls, Hannah does a partial safety check. He only saw a few of the rounds I guess because she just like spun it so quickly, and they all looked good to him. So the two of them negligently did not detect that there was a live round inside of the firearm. They were like, okay, this is a cold gun. And then they hand that gun to Alec Baldwin and say, this is a cold gun. Alec Baldwin, according to the state, did two things wrong. One, he did not personally check the firearm himself, which, as I described before, I, as an actor who knows shit about shit, especially guns, I would feel very nervous if I was the last line of defense, because I would not know how to look at bullets that the armorer and the safety officer had both just looked at. I wouldn't know how to look at them and say, oh wait, one of these is actually alive. Like but I get it. I get that that's something that the state believes that he should have done. Most importantly, though, regardless of what was inside of the firearm, he also, while they were blocking out this scene, he was pointing the gun toward people, Helena Hutchins and Joel Souza, the director, who were, over behind the camera. If I'm the actor, you're the camera. They were right behind the camera while he's fucking around with the gun. He pointed it toward people. He cocked the hammer. He pulled the trigger. That's a problem. Even if you think that the gun is full of dummies, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to. Because of, God forbid, something like this happens. And it did. So that's why Alec Baldwin was on trial, because of those two things that he did wrong, according to the state. Not checking the gun himself, and then handling it unsafely by pointing it toward people, cocking the hammer, and pulling the trigger, according to the state. Alec Baldwin, of course, says that he did not pull the trigger. And again, as I said, everybody who knows anything about that gun says the only way to fire it is by cocking the hammer and pulling the trigger. So if I had to choose, I would not choose the actor who knows shit about shit. I would choose like the manufacturer of the gun and everybody else who says that that's what you have to do. Now, I'm going to try really hard not to go off on a side tangent about Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. Her whole trial took place in February and March of this year, while I was in my medical darkness era, and I was off of YouTube. But I absolutely watched the entire thing because, like I said, this is a very interesting trial to me. Oh yeah, La Goat. It was wild watching the case. I don't normally watch court stuff, but for some reason the EDB stream on day one was in my Rex. I'm not American, and it mostly felt crazy how TV show like it was. Yeah, guys, like I said, this was so unbelievable. This whole entire process, it was a 3-day train wreck. Yesterday was the culmination of months and years of bullshit piling up. And thank you for tuning in to the American court system while it goes down in flames. I appreciate it from being outside of the U.S. And thank you for being here right now. And I agree. Much respect to Erlinda Johnson, the prosecutor who dropped out yesterday. So I'm going to try not to get sidetracked into Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, but there's a ton of coverage of that trial. It was very interesting. There was a lot of nepotism going on there. There's a lot of, benefit of the doubt being afforded to this young woman. I do believe that they overscheduled her by having her do props and armorer, but I also believe that she should have advocated for herself and said, I'm not doing that. The armor, like in this movie that is very gun heavy, I need to be armorer only, or I need to be not part of this. She could have and should have done that, and she didn't. There's a lot that I could say. Like I said, I don't want to get down that rabbit hole, but she's very responsible for this. The trial of Alec Baldwin was meant to take place over the course of about 8 days, with 8 to 10 days with some room for deliberation in there. So it started on Wednesday of this past week and was meant to go until Wednesday, Thursday of this coming week, and then Thursday, Friday, deliberation days, depending on how long the jury took, it could have lasted longer. All throughout, the one thing I'll say about, well, like I said, I'm trying not to get sidetracked. Carrie Morrissey, the special prosecutor for both of these cases, the lead special prosecutor, has been the most frustrating person to watch throughout this whole experience. Because like I said, I firmly believe that she saw this, my opinion, that she saw this as sending a message to the industry, sending the message to celebrities, like making an example out of Alec Baldwin. And instead, the example was made out of her. So there's a little bit of just desserts yesterday. But the way that she kept condescending to every single person that she was interacting with the entire time was very, very frustrating. Her tone of voice, her delivery, I don't know what it is, but the reason it's frustrating is because when she's right about something, then you're like, ooh, Carrie got him. Yeah, Carrie, tell him. But when she's wrong about something, it's like, oh, Carrie really thought she got him. Oh, Carrie really thought she did something there, but she just like bullied this person. Yeah. I know you said you didn't want to sidetrack to Hannah's case, but I'm pretty sure that your feelings were either felt by her defense team or she had said it out loud at some point. Oh, yes. Because I remember that being a big point of contention. Yeah, those were a couple of the like highlights from the trial for me, from Hannah's trial, was like those things that I brought up. And watching Hannah's trial, another highlight was the behavior of prosecutor Carrie Morrissey. I think that she saw Hannah's trial as like a practice run for Alec's trial. And she just made an ass of herself the whole time. And thank God the evidence was good, because if I, as a juror, had to vote based on which lawyers I liked more, I would not have voted in favor of the prosecution, because she just grated on my being for the weeks of that trial. And then over the few months after that, there were these hearings, these motions hearings, as is typical leading up to a trial. Alec Baldwin's lawyers made multiple motions claiming that Carrie Morrissey was withholding evidence from the defense. And that's kind of a typical expected claim to hear from the defense, because when the defense is zealously advocating for their client, they are nitpicking everything that the police did, everything that the investigation did. It's kind of part of their shtick to constantly be like, oh, that's wrong. You did that wrong. We don't have that. We don't have that report. We da-da-da-da. You da-da-da. But, you know, as a judge, I imagine, I'm not a judge, I'm just a random person. As a judge, I imagine you expect a certain amount of that. And then when it rises to a certain level, past kind of that certain amount, it becomes a red flag. And I believe that before we got into trial, the number of times that it had been brought up may have become a red flag to Judge Summer. The reason that I say that is because, like I said, when she dismissed this case, she said that there was a pattern. There were multiple times that the defense had evidence withheld from them. Therefore, this trial had to be dismissed with prejudice. So she knew of more than one time. So that was leading up to the trial. On the day before jury selection, which was on Monday of this past week, there was final pretrial motions. And one of the motions that really stuck out the most to me was about Carrie Morrissey's behavior during trial. The defense lawyer basically said to the judge, I don't know how to ask this question, but like, can Carrie Morrissey behave herself during trial? Because she just like does not follow typical court decorum. And I think that that's a problem, basically, because there's a certain process, there's a certain order to how court happens in America. You're questioning a witness, depending on who's questioning them, there's certain types of questions that you can ask. There's a certain way you need to ask those questions. If the other side does not like the question that you asked or how you ask it, they are allowed to say objection and then state the grounds for that objection. There are specific legal grounds. So if you in trial, you'll hear things like objection hearsay, objection calls for speculation, objection relevance, all sorts of things. What Carrie Morrissey would do is along the lines of objection, what are you even talking about? That's not it. Like, she would just like start talking. And sometimes she wouldn't even say objection. Objection, Your Honor, we really can't have this kind of thing going on. Like, just like spouting, just yapping, which is not appropriate. Yes. The pain I felt. Yes. So there was this moment during trial. This was during trial. During the Alec Baldwin trial. The defense lawyer was questioning a witness, and this was when Carrie Morrissey was trying to control herself. And he asks a question and she just blurts out, "Please, Your Honor." Like, just whining in front of everybody. And I'm like, that is not a goddamn objection. I am a random internet juror, and I know. Like, you've got to be kidding me. It seems so unprofessional to me. And there are claims that apparently she was motioning to the witnesses on how to answer. So, and we'll get to the behavior in this trial. But this was behavior that Carrie Morrissey was exhibiting during the Hannah Gutierrez trial. Alec Baldwin's defense lawyers wanted to get out ahead of it and say, like, Your Honor, can we just tell Carrie to, like, collect herself and, like, be normal during trial, please? So what the judge said was, we're going to start out strict. Both of you, defense and prosecution, if you have an objection, you're going to say the word objection, and then you're going to approach the bench. And, oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Oh, my God, Lagoat. You have welcome to American LawTube. You're going to have a fun time. Welcome. Although I will say, thankfully, days in court like yesterday are extremely unusual, which is why it's so newsworthy and so emotional to watch, because, like, this is a famous person. Thank God that this is a famous person so we can see this shit going on. God forbid it was random Joe and this was going on and no cameras were in the room and nobody gave a shit. Like, that's what this is all about, really, at the end of the day. Okay, sorry, I have to stay on track. I have to stop looking at the chat for just a second so I can finish my thought. Excuse me. So the judge said, both sides, prosecution and defense, when you have an objection, you're going to say the word objection. You're both going to come up to the bench. We're going to privately discuss the objection. And then you're going to go back down and I will say whether I've overruled the objection or sustained it. That will be that. That is how we're going to do this. Okay, defense says, okay, judge. Prosecution, Carrie, says, okay, judge. The first day of trial, none of that happened. Absolutely zero of that decorum. Absolutely none of that. As soon as Carrie Morrissey opened her mouth, aside from opening statement, she gave her opening statement. But as soon as she made an objection beyond opening statements, it was this shit. It was the same shit she'd been doing in Hannah Gutierrez's trial. And the first time it happened, the defense lawyer looked like a deer in the headlights, because he was like, it's happening. Oh God, it's happening. The thing that he had seen in the Hannah Gutierrez's Reed's trial. Even though Carrie Morrissey stood there and told the judge, yes, I can control myself, I can behave myself, she then did not. So the objections became a problem. Decorum became a problem. You have moments like people are referring to. Page and number. Guys, it reminded me so much of, the episode of The Office maybe I'm aging myself a little bit here, but the Christmas episode of The Office where Phyllis dresses up as female Santa and Michael Scott is so mad about it that he dresses up as Jesus for Santa for Christmas for like Secret Santa exchange, and he sits over in the corner and he's like, I have a microphone, what am I doing? And he's like commentating bitterly and angrily about like, well, I guess you sure got a sucky exchange gift secret, what is it, white elephant gift exchange, you suck and so does your gift, like that whole thing. That was Carrie Morrissey throughout this trial, just like commentating from the side. There was the page and number thing was, there was this one document that the defense lawyer was trying to impeach a witness, which is basically saying, here's a document of the last time that we talked about this. You said something different than what you're saying now. Let's look at this document and you can tell me which one is more true, what you said then or what you said now, basically. And she was like, oh, that's not how you properly impeach a witness. And then they go to the bench and she gets overruled. And the guy continues what he's doing. And she's like, I don't know what document this even is. Again, not saying objection, not like stating grounds of anything, just like bullying this defense lawyer. And he like gives her the document. They do all of this. He starts going through it with the witness and she's like, I need the page and number. And he's the page number and line. And he ignores her, as he has the right to do because he's not talking to her. And he continues talking to the witness and she's like over in the corner, page number and line, page and line. This is in front of the jury. This is in front of this is in front of the cameras. This is why, honestly, I thought that Carrie Morrissey wanted to become a meme. I thought that Carrie Morrissey was doing everything she could to bring media attention to this case, which is why it was rather sweet when she was humbled so severely on Friday. But it sucks that it has to come at the cost of potentially justice for the victim, Helena Hutchins. She made this about herself in so many ways, and then sat there and accused Alec Baldwin of like trying to bring in some heat with his big city lawyers and his big city team. There is no amount of money that Alec Baldwin could spend on private lawyers that, even if he hired a team of 10 or 20 lawyers, guess what? The state, the police, the government has more lawyers, has more police, has a larger team than Alex Baldwin could ever afford. She's the one in the room with the power. So she's supposed to control herself. And honestly, if she thought her case was so strong, she wouldn't need to sit there and make an ass of herself and bully the defense lawyer in order to throw him out of his groove so badly. If she just thought that she had a strong case, she would just sit there and not do pointless objections that kept getting overruled improperly after telling the judge she was going to behave, and whining like a baby as if New Mexico, the state of New Mexico, was somehow being wronged by the defense team, which they weren't. She's got it all wrong, because she's usually a defense lawyer. In her private practice, she's usually a defense lawyer. So I think she gets into that mindset of looking for injustice and trying to point out injustice on behalf of her client. But her client is the people of the state of New Mexico. She's actually the one bringing the charges in this case. She's not the victim of anything. She is the sword that the government is swinging. And she wants to sit there and act so victimized by nothing. And it's really, really pathetic. It's really, really gross to watch, in my opinion. You know, like I said, when she's right, she's right. And when she's right, it seems like this, righteous anger, and it seems like, ooh, Carrie, you got him. Yeah, tell him, Carrie. But that's so rare that her condescension feels justified, that all the other times when she's just being a biatch, sorry, I don't know why I'm afraid to say bitch, because it's what she was being. All the other times just drown out the moments when it seems actually justified. And those moments lose their impact. Because you gotta have control. You gotta have self-control. This is her style, and I hate it. So, during Alec Baldwin's trial, this was the demeanor. This was the what was going on in court between Carrie Morrissey and the defense team. And God bless Erlinda Johnson, Carrie Morrissey's co-counsel, the second special prosecutor, who, when she got up on the stand, again, what a breath of fresh air. Just listening to her voice, calm, cool, collected, just asking questions and getting answers. And when she objected, it was just objection, relevance, objection, hearsay, whatever. Confidence. She exuded confidence in a way that, like, Carrie Morrissey also exuded confidence, but like the kind of confidence that you're not impressed by. The kind of confidence where it's like, ooh, you're more confident than you should be. I'm not sure where you earned this confidence, but I don't think you earned it. I think you grappled it away from other people by tearing them down or something like that. Like, I'm speculating, and I'm just kind of mad about how she behaves. So I'm just kind of letting that out. I don't know if I'm being too harsh here or not, but like, it doesn't seem like intrinsic confidence. It seems like gamesmanship and making everything about herself and drawing attention to herself more than it's about, like trying to be right, trying to always be right, making it about herself being right rather than making it about, do you know what I mean? Like, there's confidence. Confidence can include being wrong and being okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, having to always be right, having to always prove yourself right, and fighting so hard to be right. I don't know if that's the same as confidence. I think that's something else. Tell me what the word I'm looking for is. So, yeah, maybe more arrogance than confidence. Something like that. Cutthroat, Bulldog, Vivienne, Early Legally Blonde. Yes, exactly. It's like aggressive. It's aggression. It's not confidence. Let's say it's that. It's not aggression. It's not confidence. It's aggression. I think that's probably a good word for what I'm trying to describe. And aggression is not confidence. Aggression comes from internal fear and internal insecurity. It comes off like a bully. And nobody wants to watch a bully somebody. And that's what I felt like we were all watching. So, oh God. The first couple days of trial, I would say day and a half of trial, we had our opening statements of Alec Baldwin's trial. The state said Alec did the two bad things. He didn't check the gun, and then he aimed it toward a person and he fired. The opening was delivered by Erlinda Johnson, and her main point was basically, if you play make-believe with a real gun, there can be real consequences, and that's what happened here. And I was like, that's a good point, Erlinda. Tell him, Erlinda. I was so glad to hear her opening. The defense's opening was, I hear you, Erlinda. However, when you're in a movie, when you're making a movie and you're in the land of make-believe, you are constantly, all of the time, doing things that in real life would be dangerous or in real life would be fake. In a movie, you can drink poison because it's not real poison. You can swing swords around because either it's not a real sword or, you're hitting stuntmen who have secret armor on. There's all of these movie magic things that can make it look like you're doing something that you're really not, or that can make it safe for you to do X, Y, or Z. And that includes using firearms on a set of a movie. You can do it in ways that in real life would be completely dangerous, but in a movie are not. Or in the making of a movie are not. And that's essentially what Alec Baldwin did here, according to them, or at least what he thought he was doing. And he's not to blame for this because there should never have been a live bullet in that gun. So he shouldn't have had to worry about where he was pointing it. He shouldn't have had to worry about checking it because he was given a gun and told this is a cold gun by the people who knew more about guns than him, whose job it was to know the most about guns. So the defense is basically validating being in a movie and the land of make-believe as like it is not the actor's job. It is other people's job. And then they tell the actor, they were like, safety happens before the actor. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting to me. Both of these arguments are interesting to me. I want to see what the jury chooses because I am so in the gray area on this. I see both sides so hard and I cannot choose. I can't choose. So I need your help. Let me know in the comments. Like we need to talk about this because I don't know what to think. After opening statements, they get into the testimony of like police, people basically who showed up, first responders. They had body cams on, so there was body cam footage of what was going on at the scene at the time. So basically, as a way of getting that body footage into the trial as evidence, they need to bring in the people who were wearing the body camera and have them say, hi, this is me. I was there that day. This is my body cam footage from the body cam that I was wearing. Yes, this is real. This is legit. Kind of verifying and validating the evidence as being real. And I imagine had the trial gone on, they would have referred back to the body cam a lot of times. So they had two or three police come up and testify about that. And they were cross-examined as to like, why did they not separate the witnesses? A lot of the same points that were made in the Hannah Gutierrez Reed trial. Why did they not separate the witnesses? Why did they not treat Alec Baldwin in a particular way? They felt like I don't know. I don't remember everything because I'm just so like overshadowed by what happened yesterday. Also, I'm sorry, my contacts are getting dry, so like I'm blinking so much, and I promise I'm not like, I'm just trying to get my contacts back to livable. So then I think it was after a couple of law enforcement witnesses, Popple came up. A witness named Popple, who was a crime scene technician. And that's where we started hearing about this physical evidence that was brought in. You know, they did the direct examination and it was fine. And then sorry, I got distracted. The defense came up and started asking, you know, all sorts of questions, but they ended up on this line of questioning, going down this path of Troy Teskey, this guy who brought in physical evidence to the police station and what they did with that evidence. That is the evidence that became the subject. This was on day 2 of trial, kind of in the afternoon. That became the subject of what happened yesterday during trial. So this crime scene tech, to her full credit, she did not know who Troy Teskey was. She did not know what was being handed to her. She just thought he was this cheerful guy who came in and was like, hi, I have some evidence for the Rust case in March of 2024, after the case had like been going on for weeks at that point. And this just like nice man from Arizona just arrives and is like, hi, I have some evidence for you. She's like, oh, sure you do, buddy. Like, she doesn't really have any reason right away to know that it's legit in any way. But they go through the motions. They take this guy to an interview room and they talk to him about it. And he says that he was supposed to... it's kind of hard to summarize this with any kind of exactness because the story was told several times in several different ways by several different people. But essentially what comes out through Popple's interview the end of the day Thursday, and then through the laborious process of unfolding all of the details on Friday. I'll just tell you basically like the sum and substance of what everybody eventually had their teeth pulled to finally say. Troy Teskey is this guy who is a friend or co-worker, colleague of Hannah Gutierrez, the armorer, her dad, Thel Reed, who is a friend, co-worker, colleague of Seth Kenny, who owned C&P, whatever, the props and armory warehouse. That is where Rust got all of their equipment, all of their firearms, and the dummies and blanks from. C&P? What is it? Whatever it's called. And they, I don't know, they all know each other. Armoring is a small world. And Seth Kenny said to Troy Teskey, I don't know, there was some conversation. Troy Teskey had rounds that were from the same batch and basically matched the live rounds that ended up on the set of Rust and being fired from the gun. And the defense team found out about this before Hannah Gutierrez Reed's trial, and they brought it up. He was on their witness list. He was not some unknown nobody, at least not to the lead detective, Hancock, and therefore not to Morrissey, the prosecutor, but she wasn't allowed to talk to him because he was a defense witness and she was a prosecution, so she couldn't just ring him up and say, hey, buddy, what's your story? So, and I understand there's boundaries, whatever. So the defense team for Hannah Gutierrez Reed invited him in to testify. He brought in the rounds. Basically, what they expected was that there was going to be some kind of comparison of the rounds to what Hannah had. I don't know exactly what point was going to be tried to be made, but there's been this theory all along the way, kind of started by Hannah's father, Thel Reed, and Troy Teskey is his friend, and you know, the state sees it as some kind of conspiracy, but people who watch Seth Kenny testify take it kind of seriously because Seth Kenny is the most insufferable person. Carrie Morrissey and Seth Kenny in the same conversation. I don't know if it's... they belong together. They deserve each other. That's what I'll say. So the defense wanted to bring in Troy Teskey and these live rounds as some kind of comparison evidence compared to what Hannah Gutierrez Reed and what they had on the set of Rust. So he drove from Arizona over to this trial while it was still going on, expecting he was going to testify. The defense took one look at the physical evidence that he brought, the rounds that he brought, and said, oh, that actually does not help my case. It actually hurts my case. So thank you so much. We're not going to have you testify. And those we're not going to take those rounds from you. Have a great day. And so this Troy is kind of just like standing there at the courthouse with like, oh, so now I have these items that you've told me are very important to the case, but you're not going to actually have me testify. But so now I have these. So if they're important to the case, shouldn't I give them to the people on the case? I don't know. So then he went to go talk to the prosecution, and the prosecution was like, we're in the middle of trial right this second, but if you wait downstairs at some point, Hancock, the investigator, the detective, is like, if you wait, I'll come downstairs at some point and grab these from you and talk to you about them, whatever. He did not have forever and a day to wait around. So Troy Teskey just went over to the sheriff's office and wanted to drop them off at the sheriff's office. The person who, received him there was Popple, who had no idea who he was and had no idea his relationship to anything or anybody or the case or anything, because she's the bottom rung of the ladder. That's the credit I will give to Popple. She doesn't know shit. She's not supposed to know shit. That's fine. She followed the order of her supervisors, which included Hancock and the guy who was wearing the body-worn camera. So, by the way, when there was this meeting where Troy shows up at the sheriff's office, he's like, hi, I'm here with some evidence. And they take him into the room to ask him about the evidence and everything. A supervisor went with Popple and Troy. There were like several people in the room. And the supervisor was wearing a body-worn camera. So there's camera footage of this event taking place. In the middle of the day on Friday is when they first discovered, apparently, that this body-worn camera exists. And Hancock, the lead investigator, should not be just finding out for the first time in the middle of trial that such evidence exists. Evidence around the evidence. Evidence about the evidence. So, just as a sidebar, you know how the whole problem here is about the state withholding evidence because they took in this physical evidence from Troy. They put it in a separate file because they were like, we're going to sort this out, but not right now. We're not sure what to do with this. And through either their inaction, because Hancock tried twice to reach out to Troy to talk to him and did not get him on the phone. She was like, well, I've tried. That's enough. And through Carrie Morrissey, according to herself and Hancock, deciding that this evidence was not legitimate. It wasn't relevant to the Alec Baldwin case, so we're not going to tell the defense about it, which is not their decision to make. It is not the prosecution's decision to decide that any piece of evidence is not relevant to the defense. If that was how this worked, the defense would not be receiving a lot of evidence. You know, like that could go really wrong really fast. You know how that's the crux of this, about the prosecution withholding evidence? So the fun part is, in the middle of this hearing about this yesterday, they bring out this body-worn camera of this interaction between Troy bringing in the bullets. They take him to the interview room. They talk about it. They're laughing and joking and have a good time talking about these bullets, and he's telling his story. They mention this body-worn camera. The defense team raises their hand and they're like, what body-worn camera? We've never seen this video footage that you're talking about. This evidence we don't have. And Carrie Morrissey is like, oh yeah, we just got it too. And me and the other defense lawyers are like, ma'am, if you just got it, the first thing you need to do is just get it over to the defense team. Right? Isn't that what this whole thing is about? Like right in front of the judge's eyes, right in court, in the middle of litigating whether or not the prosecution has withheld evidence from the defense, it sure looks like the prosecution just withheld evidence from the defense again. Like, the lack of self-awareness, I guess, the hubris, the something to think that they should, if they suddenly discovered that footage that day, okay, you know who else needs to suddenly discover it? The defense team. That's the whole point of this. Carrie, please. My mouth dropped open. And I think the judge's jaw was like on the table the whole day. But like that was a big point against Carrie in that whole scenario. So yeah, guys, that's what this turns into, essentially. Troy drops this stuff off. Hancock, the lead investigator, and like basically makes the executive decision to put these rounds into like some separate case file to later analyze or later decide what to do with it, and never told the defense about it. She called because her thing was, I wanted to get a statement from Troy Teskey about these bullets. Apparently, again, not knowing that there was some sort of footage of him coming and making statements about the bullets and about like the chain of custody and what the fuck they were and why the fuck he dropped them off. I understand, like I said, that the CST Popple, having this nice man show up and be like, hi, I'm here with some evidence. She might be like, oh, sure you are. This very public case about a very like high profile celebrity. Oh, I'm sure some random guy walking off the street is here to just give me some evidence. That sounds real. Like, I understand her being suspicious and not immediately wanting to count it as valid. But Hancock's job is an investigator. It's her job to investigate and like do some things to find out the answers to some questions. And all she had to do apparently was look at this body camera footage, and she didn't until yesterday in the middle of a motion hearing about whether or not evidence had been withheld. So it just goes to what the fuck. So she tried to legitimize the evidence by calling Troy Teskey twice. He didn't pick up the phone. He also didn't return the call. So she was like, well, that's all the investigating for me. That's enough of that. It must not be relevant. It must not be real evidence, even though it's not like all the other evidence had a witness statement along with it, or like had a statement from the person who turned in the evidence, or like who collected the evidence. There's chain of custody, yes, but there's not like come on, it's treating this evidence differently, especially because she knew who Troy Teskey was. She knew the history related to that piece of evidence. Popple didn't know. Hancock knew. So when she decided we're going to make this doc file, we're going to document report, and put it under a separate case number, she was in court with Morrissey. She tells this to Morrissey. Morrissey's like, okay, yep, sounds good. And then she said on the stand that she didn't think that that's what that meant, essentially. The defense finds out about this. I don't know how, but I have a feeling that it's because Hannah Gutierrez-Reed's defense lawyer emailed them and was like, hey, by the way, guess what happened with Troy? I'm just letting you know in case you want to find this evidence. Because the reason that this evidence could be significant to the case is because it may have related to this suspicion that people have about the live bullets being planted on the set, because Hannah Gutierrez-Reed maintains to this day that she did not bring live ammo onto the set. The prosecution has a theory that it was mixed in from past ammo that she had from a past project from her dad, that her dad had worked on a project with live and dummies, and that had gotten mixed and then given to her, and then she had brought it onto the Rust set. Hannah and her defense team's theory is, no, Seth Kenney must have mixed and like planted this live ammunition as a form of like sabotage. And like, is it a little bit far-fetched? Sure. If you've seen Seth Kenney testify, it's a little less far-fetched because he is a shady dude. And you want to not block the defense from being able to explore that theory if anything about that theory could be helpful to Alec Baldwin. It's not up to Carrie whether or not that evidence is relevant. It's not up to the police whether or not that evidence is relevant to the defense's case. The defense decides what is relevant to their case. The police's job is to gather evidence, discovery, and just lay it out on a big old table for the prosecution and the defense to look at it, interpret it, decide for themselves what they're going to do with it, what conclusions they draw from it, and go from there. It is not the police's job to make any conclusions about what is relevant or not within reason. Like if somebody brings a coconut and says, this is evidence, that might be a little weird, like there's boundaries. But something from Troy Teskey, who she knew who Troy Teskey was, she knew what this was about. It was not up to her to decide that it was not relevant to Alec Baldwin's defense. Yet Hancock did. And through this chain of events, the evidence was withheld from the defense team, from Alec Baldwin's team. The way that it was unfolded throughout the court day yesterday was, I can't describe it. Like, other than, I think I said before, you think it couldn't get any worse, and then it does. And then it gets worse, and then it gets worse. And then Erlinda quits, and then it gets worse. And then it ended with Carrie Morrissey herself putting herself on the stand to testify. Nobody asked her to do it. The judge specifically said, I'm not asking you to get up there and testify. The defense team is not asking you to get up there and testify. You're the only one who wants you to get up on that stand and testify. And she's like, I know, I'm happy to do it. And I'm like, Carrie, no, don't. Like the state of panic that she must have been in, the state of denial, the state of defensiveness, the state of, I don't even know how to describe that feeling, that desperate feeling. Because she's like, I need to make my record. If this case is going to be dismissed, I need to make sure there's a full record. So she knew that this was what was going to happen. And she wanted to get up there and make sure that under oath, she said that she did not know that that this is what was meant when Hancock said she was going to make a document file or document report or whatever, that the evidence was going to be filed under a separate file and therefore essentially be withheld from the defense by staying in a whole separate box than the box that everything else Rust related was in. However, throughout the whole day, as this was being discussed, Carrie Morrissey kept missing the point over and over again. Everybody was focusing on the withholding of this evidence. Carrie kept getting up there and saying, there's no evidence that this ammunition was on the set of Rust and had anything to do with what happened to Helena Hutchins. And everybody's like, no, we get that. That's not the problem here, Carrie. The problem here is that's a decision that you made. That's an opinion that you made. And you made that opinion and applied your opinion to the defense, you and Hancock. And based on your opinion that is true, you denied the defense from being able to see this evidence. And that's not your place. The withholding is the problem, not the actual relevance of the bullets and the whole Seth Kenney conspiracy theory and the potential planting of evidence. Nobody cares whether you think that that's real. The defense has the right to investigate that if they so choose. And this evidence is part of that, Carrie. I'm so sorry, but that just is what that is. And she just kept all day bringing up, there's no evidence that was related to the case, which is not true. And even as she walked out of the courthouse yesterday, after the case had been dismissed because the judge had enough of her fuckery, she still just said to the media, the only thing she was willing to say was that she was disappointed, but, she disagreed with the judge's ruling, but that ultimately she felt confident that the evidence had nothing, was not on the set of Rust, and therefore it didn't have anything to do with the case. And so we're like, okay, so you are confident that you are missing the point. You are choosing to miss the point. That's not, relevance is not up to you. Relevance is not your decision to make, Carrie. What is relevant to the defense is not a decision you, the prosecutor, are allowed to make. And by making that decision, you/your team, your umbrella of the prosecution, the state, the umbrella of the prosecution includes the police, the crime scene tech, the whoever was in any way tangentially involved with this case that belongs to law enforcement. That all falls under the umbrella of the prosecution. When the prosecution makes that choice to not turn over evidence because they think it's not relevant, they done fucked up. And they done deserve to have their trial mistried, dismissed without prejudice, or dismissed with prejudice. And this was dismissed with prejudice because, according to the judge, there's a pattern of behavior here, of evidence being withheld. It happened in front of her eyes with that newfound body cam footage. And the judge was pissed. And the judge made an example out of Carrie the way that Carrie was hoping to make an example out of Alec Baldwin. And I can't help but feel that it was deserved because of how Carrie has been acting this whole goddamn time. She needed to be humbled. She drew all of this media attention upon herself. There you go, Carrie. This is the attention you've been asking for. How does it feel? Are you Here's the attention. Congrats. Is it yummy? So, I hope that was a decent, it was a particular summary of events, as far as how everything played out in relation to yesterday. And now, we will never know, what this trial could have been had all of this not happened. Oh, my cat is asking to come back in. So I'm going to go. Oh, Kate, you're not too late. I'm just glad you're here. I'm going to go grab my cat. He'd like to come back in. I'm going to then check the chat. Let me know if there's anything big that I missed. I'm thinking of just one thing, but it's actually not relevant to what happened yesterday. So, oh boy, he's really complaining. Give me just 1 second and hydrate yourselves. Hello, hi, hydrate. Thanks for being here. Like the stream. Subscribe to my channel. And watch my stream from yesterday about Paris Hilton. Okay, I'll be right back. Ooh, my arm.
Hi, buddy. Hi. Come on. Hi. Hello. Hi.
Do you need dinner? Do you need dinner? Dad can give you dinner?
Hi. Come here. Oh, boy. Hi.
So this is my youngster, Junior, aka his legal name is Jupiter.
Hello, buddy. Hello. Hello.
He goes by Junior, Jupiter, Buddy, Buppy, Mr. Man, various cute names.
Hello, Bubba.
Bubba.
Hello. Come sit. Come sit, please. Hi. Hello, puppy.
He really needs to be scratched. I would like to scroll through the chat right now. My hands are occupied. I'm so sorry. But I do see one comment from Kate. So, and this is what's, oh, thank you, buddy. So this is what's frustrating. Baldwin's testimonies and interviews would have been brought up had this trial gone on, and he'd look like a reckless idiot. Carrie would have eaten him up, and it would have been more promising for the prosecution. That's the thing. It's not like there was nothing to prosecute here. It's not like there was nothing to adjudicate here. There was a real question for the jury to answer about what was Alec Baldwin's responsibility in this circumstance as the actor. What set of rules is he following? Is he following typical gun safety practice? Oh, buddy. Or is he trusting the experts in the room? And if they hand him a cold gun and he says, okay, it's a cold gun. That was a question that needed to be answered, in my opinion. And chat, I'm going to look through, and I think that you were talking about it. So I want to see your thoughts. But we're never going to have, because I hope this doesn't happen again, we're not going to have an answer to that question. The thing about Baldwin's testimonies and interviews and things, I think he was desperate. He was a public person in a public situation. He was speaking too much too soon. It was too fresh, and he made conflicting statements. I think, when in doubt, everybody in the world who knows anything about that gun, as I've said this a couple times by now, everybody in the world who knows anything about that gun says that it had to be cock hammer and pull trigger for it to go off. So that must be what Alec Baldwin did. Alec Baldwin refuses that he did that. At first he said he did, but then he changed his mind and said, no, I didn't pull the trigger. So regardless of what he said,
Hi, buddy.
it seems much more likely. The jury would have had to decide it, but it seems much more likely that he would have had to have done those things for the gun to go off, whether he thought he did or not. But now we won't really have the chance to put that to the test. Hello, Bubba. He's so needy right now. Hello. I'm sorry.
Buddy. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I would like to scroll. I really, really would. See, yes, Scott. I think I have a second here. Scott, while I saw comments that Baldwin was arrogant, but it appeared to me that Morrissey and Popple were the ones being arrogant. I think Popple was being defensive because she felt like she was being accused of things that I understand and agree with Popple and her defensiveness, because she was the bottom rung of this ladder. She was just following orders, and the defense kept saying to her, well, this evidence was never turned over to the defense, and that's above her pay grade. That is not her decision. What the defense sees or does not see, that is a Hancock decision. That is not a Popple decision. So after like 3 days of her being brought in and questioned about this stuff, I understand, honestly, her getting a little irritated and a little feisty, because she's not an investigator. She's a crime scene tech. And the defense attorney kept trying to make her responsible or muddy the waters as to who was responsible for investigator responsibilities. So I don't even think that she was being arrogant. I think she was like righteously angry, because I understand her being upset. Morrissey, on the other hand, y'all know how I feel about Morrissey. Hancock got to sit there and do the least amount of testifying, even though she had the most responsibility in this situation, in my opinion. And she got off. Like, she is so lucky, in my opinion, that she did not get much more fire. I thought the judge was going to give her a lot more fire than she did, to be honest with you. And yes, Scott, at the end of the day, absolutely. I think that, or I hope that they make changes in the film industry regarding what dummy rounds look like, so that the risk of this is addressed. So the thing is, dummy rounds, there's what we learned in the Hannah Gutierrez Reed trial is there's 2 different types of dummy rounds. Some of them have a hole drilled into the side of them, so it's very easy to visibly look at them and tell, oh, that's a dummy, because it has a hole in the side of it. And then the other way to tell is the ones that have a different colored primer in the center of the round. And then also, if you shake it, it has little beads inside of it that rattle around. So you know this is a dummy, because it's not full of like gunpowder and shit. It's full of beads. So I can tell that this is a dummy. But I agree. They could do something to make them look more obvious. The thing is, like, I think nobody expected this level of recklessness on a gun set, or on a movie set that used guns, where live bullets would even be close. And the point of a dummy is for it to cosmetically look like a live bullet. So you don't want it to look too dissimilar from lives, because the point is for it to look real, but somehow be obvious that it's not. So, like, for example, when they finished filming this movie, because there was a period of time when Alec Baldwin had settled the lawsuit with Helena Hutchinson's family. Part of the settlement of that lawsuit included finishing the movie with her husband as the producer. And during the continuation and like finishing filming the movie, they used wooden dummies so that they cosmetically looked like bullets, but had absolutely no question of any ability, whether they could fire or not. It's made out of wood. Ain't no way that it can fire. Maybe that should be the new standard. There shouldn't even be metal dummies on set anymore if they can be negligently confused with blanks or lives, you know? But it's like, and yeah. So, ooh, buddy. He got scared by me pulling the super chat up onto the screen. It surprised him. I need to. I'm Kate. I'm not sure about putting this on screen because it has words that YouTube might not like. But that might be the situation with Brandon Lee and the blank, not a dummy. If it's Brandon Lee, just let me know. Because dummies are not able to fire in any way because there's no gunpowder in them as far as I know. Blanks do have gunpowder in them. They just have small amounts. So they can cause, but there's no projectile. So that's the point, is that the blanks can cause the bang and the puff of smoke, but no projectile is sent to harm a person, you know? No, Kate, don't worry. Yes, so Brandon Lee, that was a blank. And so that's how people learned that blanks can be dangerous. It's not even, it's just YouTube. It's not you, don't worry. So that's why dummies are so important to have, and having a trained person who's qualified, just because they're, you know, you want to believe, but you shouldn't believe that just because someone is the daughter of an extremely experienced armorer does not mean that she knows what she's doing. Nepotism. So you do need to, like, have some protocols in place on such a gun-heavy movie. You know, there needs to be some something. You know, I don't. So, yeah. Oh, La Goat. I hope I'm saying your name close to right. Aren't crime scene techs more CSI, science, lab types? Why is she even expected to have contact with witnesses? I don't think that she is expected to have contact with witnesses. A crime scene tech. And this is going to differ a lot by jurisdiction. And I don't really know what the definition of a crime scene tech is, but what it seems like she was describing is that she would, like, she's the bottom rung of the ladder, maybe like sorting evidence, you know, logging it, filing it, maintaining a chain of custody, like kind of stuff like that. That's very clerical, not necessarily related to like interviewing people. Like I don't really know, but it seems like that's her kind of thing, not like investigating. She's not an investigator. She's not the person who should be or really knows how to be interviewing witnesses and interrogating like a police interview. So, you know, it's like I really don't like throwing Popple under the bus for this. Hancock, again, is the one with the most responsibility, who got the least fire in this whole shenanigans yesterday. And she ran away like a robber baron. I'm very honestly confused about why the defense didn't grill her more about this and why the judge didn't grill her more about this, because it was much more up to her than it was to Popple. But it was through the interrogation of Popple that eventually we got to, oh, we need to talk to Hancock. This is how the day started.
Hello, buddy.
This is how the day started. Come here. Yesterday, when I was talking about, like, it's hard to describe, it was because there was this flow chart essentially throughout the day. Like, first they were talking to Popple. Eventually they pulled out of Popple the fact that, you know, she had gotten her orders from Hancock. They interviewed Hancock. And then through Hancock, they got that she had gotten, like, she had made her decision in cooperation with Morrissey, the prosecutor, which I think that was the final straw for the judge. And then they found out that there was body cam footage of the moment when Troy Teskey came in with the rounds. So they pulled in the guy who was wearing the body cam, and they showed the body cam, and they reviewed the body cam, and then didn't think to give it to the defense again, just not thinking that the defense might want to see that shit. And, you know, it was this unpeeling, this level by level, this flow chart of, like, from this came this, from this came this, from this came this. And it was so, it was like it was this like stream of consciousness of in the moment investigation going on in front of the world watching. It was just so fascinating. Like again, if you've never watched a day of court before in your life, watch this day of trial. You can watch it commentary free on a place like Court TV or Law and Crime, or you can watch it with commentary with Emily D. Baker is where I watched it, and there were a ton of other people streaming. What a freaking day. So I'm going to look back. Okay, so this is conversation about the big question of this trial that we're not going to see answered by a jury, that I really wanted to see answered, of where was Alec Baldwin's responsibility in this situation? Who's more responsible? How responsible is Alec, if at all, regarding he was handed a gun. He was told it was a cold gun. It had been checked by the experts in the room. They said it was safe. But he did point it at a person and pull the trigger and cock the hammer, allegedly. I have to say allegedly because this has not been proven in a court of law. This is just an accusation now, and it will forever always just be an accusation. So you always have to say allegedly now. He mishandled it, but should he have felt okay to mishandle it because he was told that it was safe and it was just full of dummies? You know, like, I don't know. So, Rabbit says, this was when I was saying the defense's opening argument was about you can do fantastical things, like Rabbit says, while you're acting in a movie, and it's totally safe in reality because of movie magic. So Rabbit says, yes, you can do fantastical things while acting, but you still have rules. Alec, kept showing that he broke those rules. Shooting when cut was called, yes, that's a clip that they have, pointing it at people, and I think they said before that he also didn't take the gun safety classes. I think he attended, but he was inattentive. He was like filming Snapchats while they were there. So yes, they have footage of him shooting after cut had been called, using the gun like as a pointer when he was like gesturing, okay, so I'm gonna do this, and then when you come over here, then I'm gonna do that, and like using the gun like it was some little pointing stick. So yeah, he was definitely careless in how he was handling the gun. Those other moments, I don't know if those count toward this particular moment and this particular action, but in terms of him generally being careless with use of firearms, absolutely. So, La Goat. So I work in biology, and we also have safeguards, etc., and the basic rule is depend on yourself. There are layers of protection, but the last layer is you, your judgment, and you following safety rules. That absolutely makes sense. And maybe it's just the type of thing where, like, if you don't feel comfortable being responsible for gun safety, it's a freaking bug, then you just should not be in a production with guns. And that's fair. Like, maybe if I was the actor, I just should not be in a role where I have to handle a firearm. Certainly not a functioning firearm. Because if it is dependent on myself, no, I do not want that responsibility because I don't know enough. So I don't trust myself. But that is a good rule of thumb. Scott. I've heard in interviews with actors around this where some say they always check their weapon while others say they never do. Exactly. That's where I get annoyed. And because I don't know. I don't know. I think the best remedy to this situation, right? Hannah and David Halls did the safety check together. David Halls, the assistant director, the safety officer, and Hannah, the armorer, the person in charge of guns. You know who should have also been at that safety check of the gun? Alec Baldwin should have also been standing there with the two of them. All three of them could have gathered around that gun together, and Hannah Gutierrez, however bad or good her safety check was, they could have at least all done it together so that Alec could say, I attended the safety check, I looked into the gun, and I saw the bullets, and because Hannah told me that they were all dummies, and I saw them with my eyes, and I trusted and believed her, then I felt that it was safe because it was full of dummies. that's kind of a better remedy. And I've heard in the gun expert testimony in the last trial that the gun expert, like that's a very acceptable, safe, appropriate way for to do a safety check with an actor. And the gun expert in the last trial actually said, if an armorer safety checks a gun and says that it's cold and it's good to go, and then an actor safety checks the gun, the armorer has to additionally safety check the gun after the actor does. Therefore, like to truly declare it cold. So then I'm like, so does the actor's check matter? Does the actor's gun check matter if the armorer then has to double check it again? And he said that in the trial of Hannah Gutierrez-Reed. We didn't get to that point in the Alec Baldwin trial, but I was really looking forward to seeing if that came back up and if that was going to be clarified. But I think that the answer that would kind of please everybody is that the armorer should stand there with the actor, do the check in front of the actor so that both of them can see at the same time what's in the gun. But yeah, it's a stumper for me. Talking bones. You should always check the work of another if a human life is at stake. Yeah, trust is great, but verifying something like bullets can never be done too many times. Thank you, Talking. Lawyer you know said that's not even accurate. A prosecutor can contact any witness the defense calls. So that's earlier when I said that Carrie said that she couldn't contact Troy Teskey because he was a defense witness. So interesting to know. I don't know if that depends on jurisdiction in any way, but interesting point. Lawyer you know is great. I've been getting into him over the past couple of months, I would say. I like his coverage a lot. Scott, it seemed to me that the judge took a turn when she asked, was it the three of them, Morrissey, Hancock, and Popple, agreed and decided the can of ammunition was not evidence? Yeah, that moment was like, basically once she made that connection in her head that these three had all decided that it was not evidence, which is not their place to do, that was the problem for the judge. So Legault, this is what's crazy. So you're saying, I really feel like in light of this, Hannah has to appeal. It would be an appeal of the ruling against her. Basically legal, hey, what the fuck? Does this conviction still stand in light of police malpractice? So here's the thing. Her lawyer knew about Troy Teskey. Her lawyer knew about this evidence that he was bringing in. He had been communicating with him all throughout the preparation for her trial. He came to the defense lawyer. He said, hi, I'm here to testify, and here's the evidence that I have. And the defense lawyer looked at it and said, we're actually not going to have you testify. Because basically what Morrissey said on the stand at the end of the day yesterday, when she was fighting for her last breath on that stand, defending herself tooth and nail, she said the evidence that Troy Teskey brought would have been extremely harmful to Hannah Gutierrez's case because it did look a lot like some ammunition that was found on the set of Rust. And I'm still to this day, I'm not the next day, I'm still not 1,000% sure what they were saying that Troy Teskey's ammunition looked like. If you caught it in the comments, I'm not saying, I'm not positive if they mean that what Troy Teskey had looked like live ammo or that it looked like dummies or that it looked like blanks, but it looked like something that was on the set of Rust and that it was ammo that Seth Kenney had before Troy had it. I'm not positive what the chain of custody was, but what I am positive of is that it had something to do with Seth Kenney and the whole conspiracy that he had planted and sabotaged with live evidence, and that the defense deserved the opportunity to explore that theory and see if it mitigated anything for Alec Baldwin. And that opportunity was denied to them because the prosecution looked at it and said, this isn't relevant to you, actually. We've decided that you don't care about this. But I can't figure out exactly what it is that they decided the defense did not care about. Okay, so now I'm more caught up with where I was before in the chat. Yes. Guns are not toys. I was in a theater production with an ancient rifle as a prop. That thing stayed in one place backstage. Only one person handled it. Not even fake bullets nearby. Yeah. I hated seeing Seth Kenney get off. Seth Kenney? Dude. What a scumbag. Like, my personal opinion, the way that he was acting, a woman has died. And the way that he was acting during his testimony, he could not have taken it any less seriously. It was really gross. And again, watch if you've never watched a day of trial before. Yesterday was the perfect. It was like the highlight. It was the highlights of every single day, like every element. You couldn't write it. The smarmy witness, the witness who didn't realize the significance of what they were saying, the unfolding of police corruption in front of everybody's eyes, the humbling of a prosecutor who was way up on her high horse at the beginning of the day and fighting for her life at the end of the day. Like, it had everything. It was an absolute circus because it had everything and it was all real. It was, yeah. Seth Kenney has not been charged, but he does not have an immunity deal. I'm still surprised at this time that no one has further investigated him. He was so helpful to the police that I do feel like it was suspicious. He had a lot of opportunity to go fuck with evidence. I have no reason to believe that he did not. That's all I'm going to say. And this is my personal opinion. And yes, Scott, let's not forget that the assistant director, I think this is assistant director's duty, was to check the gun after the armorer, which he did, but pled no contest. And who would an actor check the gun? So yes. Oh. Would they pull how would an actor check the gun? Would they pull all the rounds out and inspect them? I think the idea is that you turn the cylinder. I don't know a lot about guns. I've only learned from this trial what it is. The cylinder where you can see the back of all the bullets. And the ones that are dummies have a different color primer in the center, a different color in the center of the bullet. So all of them that were in there should have had that dummy color in the center of the bullet. Silver, I believe, is the dummy color, and copper are the live ones. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's one of those. This is why I should never be on a movie set, because I'm going to accidentally put the wrong primer color in. Hi, Violet. How you doing? Okay, so and this is what I was also confused about. So in the Scott, in the video where he fired the gun, which is not the video where he fired the gun. The video that you've seen, that I've also seen, is video of them practicing before they went on lunch break. After they came back from lunch break is when the shooting happened, and there is no video of that moment. But yes, I saw what you've seen. In the video where he fired the gun, he was asking the director, do it like this, and the director was saying, don't point that at me. So I've seen that. I've also seen this clip where he's saying, okay, so whip it out, like in response to what he thinks he's hearing from the director. So like, I need to rewatch that clip. It's crazy. So, right, absolutely. So the fact that Hannah Gutierrez Reed just let him make Snapchats while training, Hannah Gutierrez Reed should have been in control of that firearms training. If Alec Baldwin attended the training and he was busy making, Snapchats or whatever, she had the authority to say, hey, Alec, put your phone away. We're doing this now. And Alec wouldn't have liked it because apparently he has a big ego. And this is the big thing. Everybody kept saying Alec was always doing things his own way. He wasn't following everybody else's rules. He wanted to be treated special. He wanted to be the boss of everything. He was the producer. And because he had such a big attitude, because he was the producer as well as being the star, he was just this powerhouse on the set. And I believe that, but I also believe what the expert armorer who testified said, which is if you go into that set and they're not listening to you and they're not respecting you and they're being unsafe, you leave that set. You leave that job because you don't want to be responsible for other people being unsafe and putting their lives, other people's lives, and your life and reputation at risk. So that kind of shit is the type of shit that she should have spoken up about. She was young and inexperienced, so she didn't feel like she should or like she could. But I've met a lot of young and inexperienced people who do think that they can, and they will. So it has to do with your internal character, I think, as well. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Scott. The director was not saying, don't point that at me. So that's the clip that I want to analyze. And yes, Talking Bones, as someone who is so new to the industry, and then he's also a producer, speaking up is incredibly scary. Yes, it is. It needs to be done. And sometimes you do leave a production because just like Erlinda left this trial in the middle of the day on Friday because she was not comfortable with the ethical and moral boundaries that she had, that she felt like were being violated by her co-counsel. And she left because she was like, this is not right. You don't want to do a dismissal of this case, but I really think that we should because we done fucked up here. So I'm erasing myself from this narrative. Sometimes for the sake of ethics and morals and safety, you need to speak up. And if you're not listened to, bounce. And it sucks to do that. Yeah. When I was Hannah's age, I did it. You have to sometimes. And yes. Hold on. Okay. I fully understand Talking Bones. I'm all about. That's why I'm having a hard time with this. With this case is like I understand this. I had the same situation with the Hannah Gutierrez case, where like because I've worked in similar settings before, I understand both sides so well. I understand wanting to trust the armorer, that if they say a gun is cold, the gun is cold, and that they're the one who needs to identify what is alive or what is round or what is blank and be in charge of that shit. Because as the actor, I want to be able to trust them that if they tell me a gun is cold, it is cold, and I can throw it off a cliff if I want, and everything is going to be fine. But I also understand being Hannah Gutierrez, being torn in different directions because she's in charge of armorer, but she's also, for some reason, doing other random props, which is like dishes, certain clothing items, like anything that an actor would like hold in a scene or interact with, or just random shit. That's the props department. She was being pulled in a million different directions, which she should not have been because of how gun heavy this set was. And it's one of those things of like, you don't want to say no to being in a big movie with a big celebrity, Alec Baldwin. It's a risk that you take. It's a choice that you make. If you get there and shit ain't going right, you either try to grin and bear it and make it work so that you can be associated with this big project, or you stick to your ethics and morals, and you miss out on potentially a big opportunity. And that is not that is not an easy choice for somebody to make. But unfortunately, it can be a fatal choice when your job is armor. If your job is just props, or if your job is costumes or something completely unrelated, it's an easier choice. It's easier to put up with bullshit and just kind of make it work. When your job is the armor, you do have to take it deadly seriously. It sucks. Oh my God, Sammy, now that you're here, it feels like a real life. Thanks for being here. Yes, Kate. So Lagoat mentioned, didn't people walk out because of safety a day or two before the shooting? It was that morning of the shooting is the day that the camera crew walked off. So they started the day late because they were dealing with that. And yes, Kate, the camera crew left for lack of safety. That was one of the reasons. There was also some union concerns. And Scott, this is a question that I'm not positive about, but what I thought that cold gun meant was that there was absolutely nothing in the gun. That's what I thought, was that there was no kind of ammunition. But that might apply to dummies because dummies cannot fire because they don't have any gunpowder. Like, if, for example, if there was blanks in the gun, then I don't think they could say cold gun because blanks can fire. But, and of course, live ammo. But if there's dummies in a gun, maybe that could count as cold. Like, I'm not positive. I thought that cold meant empty. Also, can I just say, if cold gun means empty gun, then you should know the difference. If a gun that is loaded is handed to you, it's heavier than a gun that has nothing in it. So maybe cold can mean it's full of dummies. Hi, come here. So maybe cold can mean that it's full of dummies, and it still counts as cold because dummies can't fire. I'm not sure. Please don't trust my knowledge. As I've said a few times, I don't know much about guns. Hi, come here. I think he would like dinner, and I think Dad is forgetting to give him dinner. Hi. Hello. Buddy boy. Excuse me. Hi. Oh, buddy. I need to, So yeah, let's just take a quick poll in the jury here. I don't know how to set up an actual YouTube poll, but we have exactly a jury's number of people present with us here tonight, right now. It's a small but close-knit community here on my channel. Taking into consideration all of the different factors that we've discussed, all the stuff we've talked about, of like, where do you think Alec Baldwin's responsibility lies in this situation? I don't want to say guilty or not guilty because that's a legal conclusion, but can you put in the chat responsible or R if you think that Alec Baldwin is responsible for Helena Hutchins' death in some way, or put not responsible or NR in the chat if you feel that Alec Baldwin is not responsible for Helena Hutchins' death in some way. If you feel basically that he should have been following typical, normal gun safety standards and practices and not aiming the gun toward a person, even though he was told that it was cold, if you feel that he should have done his own safety check of the gun even after it was handed to him, because that's normal gun safety practice. And just because you're on a movie set does not mean that all of a sudden you're not holding a gun and you're not, still need to treat it like it is a firearm that it is. And he was not doing that. And he was being reckless or being careless or being negligent. So he's responsible for his actions. If that's where you feel, go ahead and put R or responsible in the chat or in the comments if you're watching this on the replay. And if you're watching on the replay, you can comment, you can write some more to explain your thought process there. And if you think that he's not responsible, or NR, put that in the chat. If you're on the side of the experts looked at the gun, the expert in the room, the armorer and the safety officer looked at the gun. They said it was cold. They handed it to him. He trusted them. He thought that he was holding something that could not fire and that could not hurt anybody. So he just did whatever he wanted with it because it was not supposed to be able to hurt anybody. And that's how he treated it because that's what he was told by the expert in the room. And so he's not responsible because it's not his job to do that stuff. He trusted the people whose job it was. Then put NR or not responsible in the chat or in the comments on the replay if you're here on the replay, and help me think this through because I'm very torn still. If cold gun means nothing in the gun, then he's negligent. Okay. Unrelated, but I agree, Sammy. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined about the results of the trial. I did want to see this play out. I really, really did, because this is a complex question, and I feel like a trial is a really great way to really hash it out and get specific and get into detail so that we all as a community, essentially, that's what laws are, is all of us as a society, all of us as a community deciding what world we want to live in. Do I want to live in the world where the actor trusts the expert tells him it's a cold gun, and he doesn't have to worry about it? Or do I want to live in a world where the actor is responsible to double check his own weapon, regardless of what anybody else tells him, and again, regardless of what anyone tells him, to still treat it as a loaded weapon and not point it in the direction of anybody that he doesn't want to kill, etc. All of those typical gun safety practices. We, through trial, through lawmaking, decide these things. And I really wanted to see this play out. But so be it. Logo, responsible. Safety rules are written in blood and there for a reason, and he pulled the trigger. Yeah. At the end of the day, he was pointing a gun toward human beings, pulling a trigger, and cocking a hammer. Allegedly. Thank you. Rabbit. Cold should mean to not have live ammo. That's what I think. I think it means whether it's a dummies or whether it's empty, it ultimately means it is not able to fire anything, no blanks and no live. Okay, Scott, so clarifying, if cold gun means dummies in the gun, then NR, not responsible. Okay. I think this leans towards saying responsible. I think that you should treat a gun that works like a gun that works. No matter what's in it. Yeah. So that makes me think you're leaning toward responsible, Sammy. And so this is the thing, Kate. This is another point that was going to be litigated at trial. Basically, Alec gave conflicting statements in multiple different interviews and, police interviews and the George Stephanopoulos interview about whether or not he pulled the trigger. The way that this gun functions, everybody who knows anything about the gun says that you have to cock the hammer and pull the trigger. So in order for the gun to have gone off, that's kind of like, whether he's willing to admit it or not, allegedly, that has to be what he did in order for it to work. The defense's argument basically is like, well, things happen sometimes and guns have problems sometimes. And they were going to present evidence apparently from like the previous owner of the gun that it had sometimes acted funny. And like, I was looking forward to seeing that too. Like, there was so much that I wanted to see about this trial. And so it's sad. This is the part that it's like, It's sad for Helena and her family to not have this question answered. It's sad for us as a community and as a society trying to live our lives safely. All because the prosecution fucked the fuck up and decided that they were the arbiter of what is and is not relevant to the defense. And this is what happens. This is how you punish prosecution malpractice and misbehavior, is by dismissing their case. Saying, guess what? You don't get to prosecute anymore. You take their toys away, essentially. And that sucks sometimes. Buddy, hi. He's real anxious. I think he needs some attention. Scott, for me, it all hinges on what cold gun means on this set. So let me, you know what? I don't know why I haven't Googled this yet. A cold weapon, according to Wikipedia, is a weapon that does not involve fire or explosion, such as the act of combustion as a result from the use of gunpowder or other explosive materials. Hello, buddy. So hold on, let me just share while I'm Googling this. Hello, mister. Buddy boy. Okay. So this is a quick snippet from Wikipedia. A weapon that does not involve fire or explosions, such as the act of combustion as a result from the use of gunpowder or other explosive materials. So that makes me think that a gun with dummies in it can qualify as a cold gun, because dummies cannot combust because they don't have any gunpowder in them, so they can't fire. Even though blanks could, or live bullets obviously could. So it could be empty, or it could be, it could have dummies in it. Hello, mister. I'm sorry, there's some cat ASMR going on right now. Hi, bud. Meep. Mr. Man. He was just scratching his face on the mic. Oh boy, the ads. Get out of here, Verbo. Do I want to accept all these cookies? I don't know. Hi. Oh my God. Buddy. Okay. This is from Law Insider. I don't know what this source is. I don't know if this is real. Cold weapon means a weapon different from a firearm or a non-powder gun, and is considered any instrument especially designed and destined for attacking persons or for... Okay, I don't think that's what we're talking about. Okay, we're going to go back. Aha! This question is from Quora. From when? Oh, so this is over the past few years. People have been discussing this. Cold gun means over the past 2 years, movies in the making. The gun is... Okay, so this says that on r/movies in the making, a cold gun is empty of casings, blanks, dummy bullets, or real ammo. The gun will dry fire when the trigger is pulled. And then CNN, which I trust a little bit more than Reddit. I'm so sorry, but I like Reddit for my sources. You know this. This is from back in the day when this first happened. So this is October 23rd, 2021. The shooting took place on the 21st of October, 2021. This was like breaking news at the time. An assistant director handed Alec Baldwin a prop firearm and yelled "cold gun" before the actor fired the weapon. The cold gun remark was meant to indicate that the weapon did not have live rounds, according to an affidavit for a search warrant for the movie set filed by the sheriff's office. So this is really the most relevant definition of cold gun for our purposes, because it's what does cold gun mean on this set, according to an affidavit, which means that they got this information from somebody on the set. According to the affidavit from the sheriff's office, cold gun was meant to indicate that the weapon did not have live rounds, according to an affidavit for a search warrant by the sheriff's office. So not having live rounds could mean that it has dummies in it or nothing at all. So I think that if that makes a difference to your decision on responsible or not responsible, meaning that when you're handed a cold gun, it could have dummies in it or it could have nothing in it, then tell me the impact that has on your decision. I think that it shouldn't fall on the actors to triple check the content of the gun, but to still treat it like the object it is, a gun that could hurt people. Yeah, I think that that's absolutely fair, regardless of what's inside it. Don't point it toward people. Oh my God, get out of here, CNN. Stop it. And this is absolutely fair, Kate. Alec Baldwin is still getting reamed in the civil suits because he's a producer and hired everyone involved. This was going to be part of the criminal case, and at the last minute, it was not allowed by the judge. It was like not dismissed, but it was like basically the state was not allowed to bring up his status as a producer because she was like, "You're trying to say that Alec Baldwin, the actor, pulled the trigger on this gun because Alec Baldwin, the producer, hired this inexperienced armorer, and she accidentally put a live round in the gun." Oh, buddy. I know. And the judge is like, "You're trying to have it both ways. Either in the moment he's acting as the actor or he's acting as the producer. You know, the producer is not on set doing these actions." She was like, this is too confusing for the jury. So we're just going to cut out the producer stuff and just talk about him as an actor. But it's absolutely fair that he should at least be civilly responsible as a producer because he hired these inexperienced people. He kept it a low-budget film. He overburdened the people who were there, like Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, making her the armorer and the props person. And maybe, and you know, to be fair, he was not the only producer, and not every specific hiring decision was his. Not every specific delegating of tasks certainly was not his personal decision. But it is one of those things where the buck stops where he's at the top of the food chain. The buck kind of stops with him in that regard. So there is some form of justice for everybody through these civil suits. Sammy, let me try to type it better. If it is a gun that functions like a real gun, you should treat it like a real gun. Yes, like for example, out of movies, if somebody pulls a gun on you, you're gonna think it's loaded. Yeah. Rabbit. I think regardless of if he was told it was live or not, it was still reckless disregard because he knew he shouldn't have pointed a gun at someone, live or not. Yeah, I think that's really the biggest point. I think that's where I can definitely agree. Even if you trust the armorer that gives you a cold gun and says that it's a cold gun, you still don't point it at people. That should just be that should just be a habit that you don't have to, like, you shouldn't have to question, am I pointing this at a person or not? Because you just should never be pointing it at a person. So God forbid something does happen, it doesn't impact a real person's real life. Yeah, I can see that. Oof, I'm thirsty. Hold on, I'm parched. Hydrate yourselves out there. My family inherited a firearm from World War I that hadn't been shot for 100 years, but my brother, still handles it like it's still active. But we have all had proper training, so IDK. And that was something I was thinking about too. Like, I want to know, this is what I wanted to see play out. I want to know if SAG, the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, if they Like, what are their regulations around, like, if an actor is going to handle a firearm on a set, do they need to have a gun license? Like, do they need to be trained in typical gun safety practices? And is that like a qualification in order to take a job where you're handling a gun on set? If not, why? Because maybe it should be, or maybe SAG should pay for, if there's an actor that they really, really want who does not have that qualification already, maybe SAG-AFTRA should pay for their training, their gun training, gun safety classes, whatever it is. And then I'm also wondering, for those of you who do have gun training, gun licenses, in our small chat here tonight, but what I'm wondering is, because I don't know anything, is it like a driver's license where you have to train, test, prove that you know how to drive a car, and then once you have a license, you can drive a car, and there are offenses you can commit that break driving rules, even if they don't like hurt other people. If you park in the wrong place, you get a ticket. If you speed, you get a ticket. Even if you don't like hit somebody because you're speeding, you can still pay a fine. These like kind of misdemeanor offenses, not even misdemeanors like with a parking ticket, but like these little things that you can get consequences for. Is it like that with guns and with firearms in any way, where there are some sort of legal ramifications? Like, you can have a driving record of like if you speed a lot, and there's a record of your tickets and stuff. And then is there a similar kind of legal record if you get are there like gun tickets? You know what I mean? Like, you're shooting in places you're not supposed to be shooting. You're hunting in places you're not supposed to be hunting. I don't know. Because that's just an area of this that's curious for me, is like the legal side of typical gun safety and gun practices, how that may or may not, cross over into what an actor does on a set. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't know. I wasn't sure how to research that. Also, I didn't have a lot of time today, but let me know what you think. If you know, if you don't know, if you're here in the replay, put it in the comments. Not responsible, as the idea that the actor is supposed to remove and inspect the ammo is unrealistic. I agree. As far as the ammo goes, I agree. As far as the pointing the weapon toward people, you guys are helping me. I see responsibility there for sure. Pointing a weapon and pulling a trigger that's a problem. Yes, Scott, he has settled with the family out of court. That happened a while ago. Yeah. He's still being sued by the set members. Absolutely. The head script supervisor, I believe, and a bunch of other people. I believe the script supervisor, she has talked about like having hearing damage from being in the room when the live round went off, and like a lot of emotional pain and suffering. Also, the set medic, I believe, is suing either the production company or Alec Baldwin personally, or both, or whatever, because a set medic is not prepared for this type of situation and these types of life-saving needs. And she basically was traumatized by expecting that her job was going to be handing out Band-Aids and Tylenol, and all of a sudden there's a woman that's been shot, that there's two people who've been shot, one of whom is in critical condition, and she's the only set medic. She's not trained for this. She's trained for some stuff, but like not this. And like the trauma of like having to handle that situation until paramedics, like the ambulance, arrived, because that's not what set medics are supposed to have to do. Ooh. Yeah, if SAG doesn't have those guidelines, they will now. I certainly hope so. Oh, and that's true. I'm in Florida, so we don't even need training to get a license. If you want one, they just give it to you. So that's, state by state, jurisdiction by jurisdiction. That's a good point. It totally depends on where you are as to how seriously this stuff is taken. Like, there's places where there's kids handling guns when they're like 12, 13 years old because they're just part of a gun-loving family and they go out hunting and it's like a rite of passage, coming of age kind of thing. So there's a gun culture in the USA that might not exist in other places around the world. So it's something. Yeah. All right. I'm at the end of the chat here, and we've been on for 2.5 hours, which is longer than I expected to be here. But thank you so much for like a great conversation tonight. Please let me know what other thoughts you have in the comments. I've got to go because if you can't tell, my voice is shot. And yeah. Let me know what you think. Sorry, I'm just like looking at the chat and absentmindedly. Let me know what you think in the comments, in the replay, in the chat if you're still here, but I'm going to be gone soon. And especially, not especially, separately and unrelatedly. I did stream yesterday in the middle of all this going on. I did an unrelated stream about the troubled teen industry, telling Paris Hilton's story. So like now that the dust is all settled, maybe go check that out if you want to, because I didn't realize that this is how court was going to go yesterday and that my audience was going to be riveted. And I understand because once I started watching it, I was like glued. It was a roller coaster. So I get it. I'm not mad. But like, now that it's over, if you want to check out my stream from yesterday, I would appreciate it. I worked hard on it. And I feel like it's okay. It's okay. I was a little tired, but like it's okay. I'm doing some more streams on the troubled teen industry as well. Unless something else comes up that I need to address. I don't know. But I hope that you take a look at that. There's also a fundraiser attached to that and the other stream that I've done about the troubled teen industry for Breaking Code Silence, which is the organization that Paris Hilton works with to stop institutional child abuse. Great organization. I hope that you at least pop over there if you want to donate to the fundraiser. Karen Reed retrial. I hope there's not a retrial. I mentioned earlier, the state responded to the defense's motion about the jury members coming forward and saying that, oh yeah, by the way, we actually did come to a verdict on 2 of the 3 charges. You know what the state said? We don't believe you because you didn't write it down properly the way that you were supposed to. So now we can't really trust what you have to say. So we don't think that the court should even have a hearing about this, because we just think that we don't wanna. No. So that's been fascinating. There's great breakdowns of the motion by lawyer and by attorney Little on YouTube. So for like a real breakdown, go check that out. But it's mostly Lally whining, and I hope the court does the right thing in this situation. Thank you, Scott. And I appreciate you doing this. This incident will change gun safety in the film industry, especially if people talk about it like you are doing here. Thank you so much. And I think that that's absolutely, no matter what happens in this case, or what happened, it's crazy that it's over. It feels so incomplete, doesn't it? Like there's no closure. Like we wanted this conclusion that we never got. But the industry is absolutely changed. The change has already happened and it is still ongoing. So we can at least rest assured that this did not happen in vain. It's not just about justice from Alec Baldwin and from Hannah Gutierrez Reed and from Dave Halls. It's also justice from the entire industry that coalesced to allowing this to even be conceived as a possibility, for allowing it to be conceived that this was an acceptable way to run a set simply because it was low budget. Oh, Lagoat, you got to go to sleep. We both got to go to sleep. Okay, for the sake of Lagoat, I got to get out of here. So if you're here, like the stream, subscribe to my channel, set your notifications to all, because I will stream again. I do more streaming than videos. I am going to put together a video for some time this month on the troubled teen industry. After I do all my streams about it, I'm going to kind of compile those together into a more digestible video format. Also, speaking of the troubled teen industry thing, I streamed about it yesterday. I think I talked about that already. So, hey, check it out if you want to, or you can wait for the video if you're not into the streams. I look forward to seeing you all again, probably on Tuesday, because I have dental fillings on Monday morning, and tomorrow is my vegging day to do nothing. Peace be with you, always. And maybe reach out to a friend. And vote in the upcoming election. And encourage a friend to vote. So long. Good night. Auf Wiedersehen. See ya.